Recently, Chris and I made a video about Google Stadia and how we were sort of confused about its pricing model and overall service, etc. And we asked for your feedback and your comments, and we got one, and we got a lot of dislikes on that one as well as likes, but curiously, we didn't really have any negative comments about it. But there was one comment that I wanted to talk about, which is sort of the inspiration for this video, and it's basically that maybe Stadia Pro is actually the issue that Chris and I are having with it, and maybe a lot of you. So we got a comment here from Alentius Speaks, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, made a very good point that neither one of us really thought about. And he said that, I'm going to be kind of jumping to the middle of the comment here. It says, you have to maintain a year-long membership to access the 4K versions of the games that you buy in Stadia. So that's $120 a year for 5 years, the length of an average console cycle, to play in 4K the same way next-gen consoles will be able to. That's $600. So Stadia will cost $100 more than the next Xbox with only half of the functionality. And a PlayStation 5 will probably have an xCloud equivalent as well, so I'm a hard pass on Stadia. It literally makes no sense. And this is actually a point that I didn't even think about in terms of if Google wants you to have Stadia as your main platform, it's not as simple as just buying games. So yes, you can buy them, but you will not play them in the highest fidelity, such as 4K HDR, surround sound audio, etc. And it might end up costing you more than a traditional console. So without actually knowing the price of Xbox Scarlett and PlayStation 5, we can't say for sure how much more, but looking at the history of consoles and prices and everything, it's safe to say it's probably going to be around $500. So, but even if you look back at it, Lynch Speaks said that it's going to be $120 a year for 5 years, but if you look at more recent console generations, they last closer to 6 or 7, which means it could be as high as $720 to $840. So when you look at that combined with the other drawbacks of Stadia, such as latency for controls, which are always going to be a factor due to the kind of streaming nature of it, as well as stuff like graphical imperfections and pixelation, combined with the possible other complications, again, such as data caps, which I have made a video about, and Google's response to data caps are very dumb. They basically say along the lines of, internet will take care of it, don't bet against the internet, whatever that means. So that's a lot of just like very confusing things, especially for a new platform. Now, where Stadia Pro could benefit is that since all of the processing and the the graphical fidelity and everything is not dependent on your hardware, but your internet connection, down the line as hardware advances and everything, they could theoretically switch out the blades that they're using in their servers to more powerful hardware without passing that on to the consumer. Now, that's great and everything, but you're then betting on Google to basically keep a service, which if a service is not profitable for Google, they have made it very clear that they are not afraid to shut it down. So looking back at that original video, maybe it's not Stadia that we so much have a problem with. Maybe it's the whole Google Stadia Pro sort of pricing and why they decide to lock certain things behind paywalls. And so I'm still sort of perplexed to why they're locking things like HDR and resolution behind the paywall. And to me, it sort of feels like whoever was in charge of figuring out the monetization of this platform to try to make it profitable was looking at what the hardcore crowd is paying for when it comes to stuff like Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, which is higher frame rates, HDR, and resolution. And they sort of came to that conclusion that they can put that behind a paywall because that's what the premium features are. The same way that now Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all pay or charge for access online, to play online. And people are obviously willing to pay for it, so that's how we're going to monetize it. But with Stadia, it's not only a brand new platform, it's a brand new way to play and to access content. To me, it makes more sense to not lock things like resolution behind a paywall, but instead offer consumers a way to entice them to the platform. Stadia Pro being a service where I can try different games and get familiar with the platform makes a lot more sense. And maybe something like Game Pass would benefit it because it's a way to get me involved in the ecosystem and get comfortable with some of the drawbacks like latency and pixelation, and lets me experience streaming games without giving them full price for a game that I could get on another platform without any of those drawbacks, as well as paying an additional $10 a month just to get things like 4K. So it seems like a very odd proposition for, as someone who cares about HDR and 4K, to give them full price for a game, let's say like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and then you want me to give you additional $10 on top of it. It's a weird ask, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the way that everything sort of sits with Stadia Pro does not make a lot of sense to the consumer right now. But the beauty of a streaming platform is that you can make a lot of changes without having to really affect the consumer. So if people aren't buying Stadia Pro, then maybe they can look at different ways to monetize it. So, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks to Alentia Speaks for the comment, which definitely inspired this video. It was a very good point. And I really appreciate it because you didn't have to do that. So, but hit that like and subscribe button for future content. We try to do videos every week, and then also we have a podcast that's Game Pass or Pass. You can find that on your podcast services of your choice. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.